Hey guys, this is Leather Leone of Chastain, and you're experiencing Poppitt's Corner. Love and Dio. Metal!
What's going on, everyone? Welcome. Episode 99 of Poppitt's Corner. Yes, one away from the big 100, and we missed it by that much. We're almost there, as you know, if you get that reference, what the episode's called, then you're in good hands, right? I'm sure Chris gets that. But
Yep.
I'd like to bring on my esteemed guest today, Mr. Chris Lawson. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked you're here, dude. We get to talk some shit. We
Yeah.
haven't seen each other in a long time. So,
I can't even remember. Yeah, it's been a while.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, if you're ready, man, I'd love to get started. I'm literally just going to go through your entire career and just see what happens. So,
Great. I'm ready
Cool.
for it.
Cool. So, give me the first recollection, or one of the first recollections of maybe when you had first heard music, and kind of what did it do for you? Maybe as a in a mental kind of capacity as a young age.
I remember hearing music all around the house. My mom was big into, she was more of the, she listened to a lot of the Beatles and the poppier kind of rock. She loved Motown. She loved the more of the stuff you can dance to, And then my dad was more he had Deep Purple, Machine Head, and records like that. And then he had some bizarre things like Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, and I discovered Jefferson Airplane, and the weird kind of trippy 60s hippie stuff. And then, but really the record, I think, hearing from him the most that kind of influenced me has got to be the first Jimi Hendrix record. He would play that, and then Machine Head from Deep Purple. And the first record they ever bought me was Kiss Alive 2. I was 5 years old. I was literally 5 years old, and I couldn't believe, I mean, to this day, I think about it. I was like, my mom and dad bought me that for Christmas, when I was 5. They're pretty rad.
Absolutely. What did it do for you, just mentally speaking? Because did you kind of like freak out a little bit? Like, what the fuck is this? Or was it
Yeah.
like, I want
Well,
to
with Kiss, it's the whole experience. It's more than the music even. You got Kiss Alive 2 back then, and it had the little tattoos in it that, they always had some sort of gimmicky thing, which was great. But I always told the story that Kiss made me want to just be in a band, because right after that, me and all my little friends in the neighborhood, we would all pretend to be, Gene Simmons, and we would, I want to be Ace Frehley. I want to be Peter Criss. We didn't know really the difference in their instruments. It was more about the personality of the Kiss character. I just knew I wanted to play music and be in a band after I heard all that. And then growing up around music and just loving it, it was one of those things. But I didn't really, I landed on guitar when I first heard Blizzard of Oz from Ozzy. And I heard Crazy Train and Randy Rhoads playing guitar, and I just went, I want to do that. And I think I was 8 or 9 when I heard that. And then I got my first guitar when I was 11. I just went out and mowed lawns and put it on layaway and bought it. And
what was the first guitar you ever got?
It was called a West. It was a company called West, and it was a black Les Paul. Basically, it was a Les Paul copy. And it was just this little music store in Long Beach area that I went to, Wilson's Music, and put it on layaway. But that Ozzy record was the one that really, I mean, that's what got me into metal. That's what got me into guitar. That's what really the record that kind of changed the way I thought about music. And then, I right around that time, I was also really heavy into like Highway to Hell from AC/DC. I discovered, although it had been out for a couple years already, but I really started listening to that. And then Rush, Moving Pictures was the other one that I just loved. So that was like my 3. No, actually I had 4, because I actually had Back in Black from AC/DC as well. But that was my 4 cassette tapes that I had for years when I was a kid. It was, Rush, Moving Pictures, Blizzard of Oz, Back in Black, and Highway to Hell. And then eventually I got Diary of a Madman too. So
wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to dissect there. So real quick, how much are we talking about when it comes to the layaway on the guitar? What is it? $300? Did you have to
Oh
save?
no, it was a $150 guitar. I still remember. And I went home. I went down to the music store because there was an older kid in the neighborhood, Scott, who he got a Flying V from there. It wasn't a real Gibson either. I don't think this store was so small. I don't think they had a Gibson or a Fender account. You know, it was like they had all knockoff stuff. But anyways, he had a Flying V, and I saw that thing, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so great. So we went down to the store. He goes, well, just check it out. You know, they'll let you put it on layaway. I'm like, I don't have any money, you know? And then, I mean, literally, I was 11 years old. And then, so we went in there and I saw this guitar and I fell in love with it. It was a black Les Paul style. So I went home and I borrowed $10 from my mom just to put it on layaway. And, then I mowed lawns pretty much that whole time to pay it off. I paid her $10 back and then paid off the guitar. And that was it.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah,
So
it was fun.
what area are we talking about in the world here?
Long Beach.
Long Beach. Okay, so you
Yeah.
were always in Long Beach.
Yeah, I was born in Long Beach.
Okay. That's I always think that's important stuff, you know. It's like the climate and everything else. So, you know, when did you start to like go to concerts? What was your first concert in Long Beach?
It was, you know, I went to one of the first greatest concerts of all time because it's a live record, and which was the Power Slave tour, and it's Live After Death that was recorded in Long Beach. I was at that show. They played 4 nights in Long Beach. It was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, and all sold out at the Long Beach Arena. And I still remember standing in line to buy that ticket, you know, when I was 11. You know, it's hard to believe my mom even let me go at 11 years old, you know, but she did. So 11 was kind of a big age. I went to my first concert. I got my guitar, you know, so everything was kind of happening for me at 11.
Absolutely. My dad was at that show too.
Oh, really?
He went like all 4 nights. So yeah, that's
Oh, wow. Yeah,
yeah,
I just went Thursday night, I think it was. Oh, and then Twisted Sister opened up on their Stay Hungry tour, which was just awesome.
it's like one of my favorite albums of the 80s, period. But
It's a
yeah,
great record.
oh,
Still holds up well.
so good. Now what impressed you most about the concert when it comes to like maybe the vibe of it? Was it like the sounds? What about that first concert kind of
Everything.
okay.
I mean, you know what? It was like, well, it was my first concert, you know, so you're just overwhelmed and, you know, but Twisted Sister came on and just blew my mind, first off. And I'm just there to see Maiden for the most part. I liked Twisted Sister then, but after seeing them live, I became a huge, huge fan of them as well. But as a live show, they were just amazing. I mean, they were such a great band. And then, of course, Maiden comes on and the full lighting and Eddie coming out. It's just so you're thinking all concerts are this level, and really, you know what I mean? So then when you go to some smaller shows, you're like, wait, this isn't quite like Iron Maiden was, you know? But yeah, I gotta say, for a first concert, that was pretty
Pretty
damn.
good.
Yeah,
You can always
and
explain
there's an
it.
album to
Yeah.
hear it for the rest of my life, you know?
Absolutely. Now, when was the moment that you kind of obviously you were playing guitar, maybe taking lessons or whatever, learning riffs from your friends, but when was the moment where it was like, I want to play in a band. I want to make my own music rather than, you know, jamming out to, you know, some cover songs or whatever.
Um, I mean, I would say before I got a guitar, I wanted to be in a band and play music and make my own music. I didn't even know what that meant yet, but you know, we used to, as kids, we would all sit there and draw different pictures and amps and stacks of things and write cheesy lyrics. And so that started really young, you know, just even as dumb and dopey as some of them probably were, it's still a start, you know, and that's what, you know, I think sometimes gets missing with younger players now. They don't have that time to dream and play. too much attention. They're on YouTube every 10 minutes. And, the being bored sometimes and having to use your imagination is much better than just watching everybody else do it, And we didn't have that luxury. We didn't have a YouTuber. I didn't even have internet yet at all. I mean, that didn't come around for a while.
I was gonna say, I don't even think that existed in a home level in the
No,
90s,
no,
in the 80s,
not
much
at
less
all.
the 90s. I think it was just starting out, late 90s. But when it came to, I think it's super important that you said, to dream. I think music should still have mystery in it, which is a
Mhm,
huge detriment to maybe why it's not as popular. It's not. I mean, music business, sure, it makes money, but
mhm,
it's not the level that it was in the 80s and 90s and 70s because of
right.
that mystery. That it's almost taken away. But I think it's super important that you said that because I think people need to still have that when it comes to picking up a record, looking at the album
Mm.
cover, trying to only imagining what these guys look like and sound like, and you only have it, have like a photo of everybody. So it's
Yeah.
like, like I want to be that guy. I want to be the poster on my wall or whatever. But it's just super important. Um, Now, but when was the moment when you wanted to kind of jam with your friends and start a band?
Well, I mean, as soon as I had a guitar, there was a few kids in the neighborhood that already did have some instruments. They were all older than me. I was the youngest one. So I was 11 and then everybody else was like 16 already, 15. My brother had friends. It was basically my brother's friends more than my friends. But then when I started playing guitar, you know how that works. Then I became friends with them more, the musicians start to cling, especially the more you play and the better you get, you'd start hanging out. And that kid, Scott, was more a friend of my brother's. He was 4 or 5 years older than me. And then there was another group, another family. One played drums, one played bass and guitar. Well, he started on guitar, then he played bass. So we would all just kind of jam and play together. We all sucked, but it was just so fun. It was just, I don't care how bad it sounded. And the cops came out on us a number of times and, it was just good. But it was so fun. I mean, those days of just that careless abandon of just, I don't care how shitty it sounds. This is the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. And that's really when it hit me when I got to play with a real drummer and a bass player or another guitar player. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I was friends with Patrick since 3rd grade, I think it was. Well, we weren't really friends then, actually. We didn't like each other in 3rd grade. But by 6th grade, we started hanging out a lot. Um, Him and I became really good friends at that point. And by 7th grade, I was like, "Man, you need to get a drum set," because he was always tapping on shit and banging on shit, and he was kinda like a rowdy little fucker in some ways.
Still
And,
is.
yeah. So he, his cousin is a fairly well-known drummer in the band called the Minutemen. George Hurley from the Minutemen's his first cousin. And so, when he was gonna get a drum set, he basically got kind of like his cousin's secondhand or something he had, like, up in his storage. And, Pat got that, and he pieced together this little, like, one tom was Blue Sparkle, and, it was, like, all just it was cool, though. It was probably great drums, too. That's the funny thing is they were probably, like, some classic drums that no one gave a shit about in, like, '86 or '85, but now they're probably worth a ton of money. I don't know what Pat ever did with them. But
Right.
his cousin was an amazing drummer, and he helped them get started a little bit there, and, so that was it. Then it was just me and Pat in that garage. He had, like it wasn't even a garage, it was a half of a shed, and we would go in there and just jam it out after school every day and, playing whatever we could.
In 6th grade, going back to the 6th grade thing, what did you guys bond over? Maybe that you hadn't had yet in 3rd grade when you guys met?
You know what? It really wasn't music yet, oddly enough. I think I kinda got him into metal more, from what I remember. Um, he was kind of just, he listened to the Mighty 690 and things like that, from what I remember. And then, I was listening to Maiden and um, Judas Priest by then. It just started to get heavier and heavier for me. Rat, we would listen to Rat, Motley Crue, even I still love the first Motley Crue record, Too Fast for Love. I think it's just a great record. But so I started getting him into metal, and then he got a drum set. And then our other friend, Kyle, who was the original bass player for Silent Scream, he got a bass. We were all friends, and Kyle I've known since I was 5, or actually before that, because our parents knew each other when we were born. So we just kind of literally have early memories of each other. And Kyle was a huge Kiss fanatic growing up, all of it, at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old with me. So then he got a bass right around the same time Pat got a drum set. So then it was the 3 of us, so now we had a bass player. Great. We didn't even know how to tune our fucking instruments yet, but we had a bass player. We didn't even know that the bass and the guitar should be tuned to each other. We actually figured out how to tune the strings. So we could tune our own guitar, and it wasn't to true 440 pitch or anything. It was just to whatever we could tune the strings to each other. And then Kyle would go off and tune by himself. We didn't realize until a little bit later that we're actually supposed to tune to each other. But, we figured it out. I think it was a music teacher that told us that because we played in 8th grade, we played a talent show. Pat and I were going to a Catholic school. And we played a talent show, and we did a cover of Holy Diver for our talent show.
How fitting.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
It is.
No guitar solo and no vocals though.
But what I'm assuming you guys didn't have a name by then for the band. It was probably just like, 3 dudes jamming.
Kind of. You know what? I think no, we did. When we played the talent show, right before the talent show, we came up with the name Dominion. And
That's a cool name.
Yeah, and so we used that at the talent show. And the funny thing is we made the kid that was announcing the talent show, because it was normally like you had to say Patrick Short and Chris Lawson with their friend Kyle, who doesn't go to school here. But we made him say the band name. And the funny thing is, I remember being behind the curtain on the stage in the auditorium, and the kid, he's, nervous anyways. He comes out and he goes, and next up is Dominion. And I just remember hearing like 5 people in the audience go, "Who?" My first stage performance was at a Catholic school with Patrick and Kyle.
How did it go? So, okay, going off of this now, what was the feeling like maybe when the curtain opened and you seeing all your friends and people you don't know, and it's like
I was nervous as
shit. Like lights are shining on you. Yeah. But you also probably realize too, it's like I'm not the only one up here, so let's rock, So
yeah, it definitely. I think if I was up there doing an acoustic thing by myself or something like that, I would have been much more afraid than having my buddies with me, and those were my 2 best friends at the time. You know what I mean? So it made it a whole lot better.
Absolutely. And what about the chemistry though? Like, talk to me about, playing with them, right? Being in time, having the chemistry, how long was it before you played the show with jamming with them, then playing the show? Was it like a year time span, just learning how each other worked as musicians and getting that chemistry?
I don't even know if it was a whole year. I mean, but when all 3 of us started playing together, I think Pat and I had been playing for about a year. Then Kyle kind of joined in with his bass. I don't remember how long it was, but it wasn't very long, but we had a friendship before that. So it was just easy, it was super easy, really. And we just decided on, let's do Holy Diver. That was the best song we could play at the time. And I wish there was a recording of it. I would love to hear that now.
I do too.
There's not.
What was it's probably a little biased because it's at a private institution or whatever, or a Catholic school. But what was the initial reaction just from maybe your friends or?
It seemed like
Now,
everybody loved it, you know. Well, we were the only one that was a band. You know, you had other people that were up there tap dancing and doing stuff, and I think someone came out and sang, you know, like a Whitney Houston or whatever popular song to the tape kind of a thing, you know, it was stuff like that. But we came out and did something, and to them, it was original music because no one knew who Dio was really in 8th grade Catholic school except us, you know, we were the odd birds in Catholic school to begin with, you know, kind of the troublemakers a little bit, but
absolutely. Well, so after this, what transpires maybe, in the Dominion camp? When did you guys maybe take it a little bit more seriously and start doing more and more shows with it?
Well, we didn't really play any shows again, um, as Dominion. That was pretty much it, and the 3 of us were just kinda jamming and nothing seemed to be happening, there was no singer, so, we were getting a little frustrated, but then in 9th grade, um, Kyle, he went to a different school than us anyways, and he was over at Carnegie over in Carson, and he met this kid there, and he was like, "Hey, this guy plays guitar and sings." And, so we were like, "Okay, cool." Well, I had kind of like I had moved to the Cerritos area at that point too, out of Long Beach, so we weren't really doing as much anymore, and I'm like, "I'm not driving all the way down there just to play Holy Diver over and over again anymore," you know? It's just like although we did start working on some original material at that point though, um, I don't remember the names at this point, but
You remember the
of the songs.
styles?
Huh?
Do you remember, like, the certain styles or of it? Was it a
Yeah, it
little bit
was
more
metal.
thrashy?
I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't quite thrash metal. It was probably more along the lines of, like, trying to be Dio or Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Motley Crue-ish, you know, kinda stuff. But, in 8th grade, I also, well, actually in 7th grade, I first heard Slayer as well. So I started listening to that. Pat at the time hated it. Like, he did not wanna hear Slayer. He didn't well, he really didn't like the, message behind Slayer. The Catholic school to me was a school to go to. The Catholic school to him was a little more, of a faith thing, and for me, it didn't really mean that much, you know? I'd sit and read Revelations in Bible class because it was like listening to an Iron Maiden record, you know?
It literally is. I mean,
I was that kid.
absolutely. Dude, so, like, going off of this point, so after the guitar player, who was the guitar player at this point that you mentioned?
Oh,
You knew a
so that
kid?
I'm sorry, I went off point on that, but yeah, so we met this kid, Rawl, and, he said, you know, Kyle said, "Oh, he sings and plays guitar," and then the 3 of them started jamming together, and I was in Cerritos, and I heard about it, I'm like, "Oh, why are you guys doing stuff?" I go, "I'll come down," you know, and they're like, "Oh, you want back in now?" Like, well, it never really quit, it was just kinda, you know, but anyway, so yeah, I came in one weekend, and the 4 of us just not only musically, we were all on the same page, but just friendship wise, we just felt like, man, you know, Rawl was funny. He was a hilarious guy. Um, but he played guitar and he sang. And he had this weird voice though for the time. You know, when he started singing, alls I could describe it at the time was like if people would ask me, it was like, what does your new singer sound like? I'm in 9th grade, you know, and I'm like,
Right.
he sounds like Lemmy a little bit from Motorhead. Um, it wasn't quite death metal though. It was kind of it was like this weird mixture, and death metal really wasn't even a term. I mean, you had Possessed and Death that were out, but that was pretty much it. So the term death metal wasn't really going around, and I wasn't really hip to it yet. And so Rawl was just singing angrily, you know, but I loved it. I was just like, "Fuck, this is just rad. I love it," you know? And he had a blue Flying V, and he was just like, you know, going for it.
I know
He was a horrible guitar player at the time, but he played it like he fucking owned it. You know what I mean? It was like
totally.
it was just I was a horrible guitar player too, but I wasn't playing it like I owned it. You know, I acted like well, all right, but Raw would show up and was just like ready to tear it up, So
And
that was it.
so
That was the
and then
first Silent Scream lineup, by the way.
okay, we'll get
That's
to it,
when it became Silent Scream.
but here's where I'm going with this. I know it's a little bit monotonous, but at this
Mhm.
specific moment, what tuning did you guys play in?
E.
Okay, so this wasn't before the switch to E flat or D, I believe, which came out a little bit later.
Yeah,
So
it's the record, the Darkest Depths record's all in E flat.
correct. That's why
Yeah,
I was going with it. So okay,
yeah.
so you guys decide on the name change because of Slayer? Am I
No, that was
okay?
before the Slayer record came out. Um, we were just like Dominion, like, fuck, what does that mean exactly? And we just didn't like it. And we were like, okay, what are we gonna call this? And with Raw added in too, it was just different. And then we kept going back and forth with names. And from when I was a little kid, I remember the movie Silent Scream. There was a movie called Silent Scream, and the tagline is "When you're too scared to scream." And I just thought, like, that's some metal ass shit right there. That's just fucking, in 86 or 85 or whenever it was when we started jamming, 86. Um, it just sounded like some cool metal ass shit. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then, yeah, the Silent Scream song, the Slayer song didn't come out till around 88.
Yeah,
But
87, 88 with South of Heaven or whatever.
yeah, everybody thought we stole it from them, but actually we had it already for about a year or so.
Okay. Well, dude, we're telling history, folks. That's what it
Yeah,
is, right? Now after the first lineup, you start making some original material. Did you ever record with this lineup?
we did. And I do not know to this day where a demo is with Raw singing on it. I probably have it somewhere. I have this huge box of cassette tapes, not store bought. It's all shit that I've either recorded on my 4-track or we demos that I got from other bands that you can't replace, that kind of stuff that I still saved. And I'm pretty sure in there somewhere. And I got to go through it one day and find it because we weren't great at labeling things. It was always just like, but yeah, we recorded one demo with Raw singing, and
Oh,
that
I
was
got to
it.
get a copy of that when you guys when you go through it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it actually myself.
I would too. But so okay, so let's go for that. So what was the feeling? How was that feeling? How was it different than say playing in a rehearsal or playing live, recording? Are the differences for you personally going into a studio for that first time?
Um, it was amazing for me, um, personally. I don't know how the other band. I think we were all excited just because we're like, "Fuck, we're going into a studio," and we did the midnight hour shift one because it was cheaper, that kind of thing. And I think I was 15 at the time. Pat was 16, and then the other two guys would have been 15. Um, I'm trying to remember though. Damn it. And
It's all
Mario or Kyle's gonna kill me on this, but I don't remember if we had already replaced Kyle with Mario when we recorded that first demo or not. My
okay.
memory is slipping a little bit, but because at first when Mario joined the band, he only played bass. And then Rawl was still singing and playing guitar. Um, but but anyways, we recorded that first demo. I think maybe Mario played on it. It wasn't Kyle. Now that God, man, maybe
That's what we
Mario
do here, folks.
remembers.
Yeah, that's what we do. I'd have to go back and listen to the episode I did with him on it to determine that. That was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
yeah.
But so okay, but the differences between recording and say live, what for you? Give me those differences.
Well, I, it's definitely different than what it is for me today. But back then, I was just excited. Well, it was all new. Playing live. We within that year, we played our first real club show. We recorded, and it was also exciting that I don't really know that I know a difference. I just knew that on the recording, this is something that we were going to lay down and have, forever. It wasn't like a live show, it's there, it's gone. You know, there was not a lot of recording of those usually back then. Um, but yeah, I, the difference for me, I guess that you could think a little bit more about what you're playing, and that's when I first realized it a little bit. But I didn't go at it from a level of, I was like, I went at it from a level of, well, you got to play this stuff live, so you can't do anything different here, or you can't add too many guitar. I mean, I didn't know about multi-tracking or anything like that. So to us, it was like going in and playing a live show in a sense. It didn't really become different until years later for me that I
Gotcha.
appreciated the differences between the studio and live. To me, it was just all exciting, no matter, it was just, I felt like I was living this dream. I was 15 and I was like playing a club. I was, recording. It was amazing. I was just thrilled to do it
What
all.
and what was the community like around that time? The specific scene, we're talking 85, 86 around, LA clubs. I'm assuming you're doing like Dancing Waters or I don't know, Fenders, or because I know
Waters
there's
was our first show ever. Yeah, the Waters Club. That was kind of in that Long Beach, Wilmington area. The Waters was like the place to kind of play without going to Hollywood. So the first show we ever did was at, um, and it was pretty mixed up. That's the funny part. We didn't play with other bands like us. We were already like faster than a lot of the bands we were playing with. And then, it started early of us that you're never playing here again. And we don't play that kind of music here. We got some of that. We got kicked out of the Troubadour. That was our second club we ever played, was the Troubadour. We played
wow.
the Waters and then we played the Troubadour.
Was the
Um,
Troubadour show the show that Mario had to sing because the singer, guitar player's mom
no,
wouldn't let him
no, no,
sing?
no. That was a little later.
Okay.
The
Okay.
Troubadour show was Mario's first show, actually.
Gotcha. Just playing
Yeah,
bass.
that was his very first show just playing bass with us. And then, yeah, so we played the Waters. I think
I wish there
we
was footage of this, dude. I really wish I had, like, footage of all this stuff. But
there is footage of the Waters Club shows. There was videotape of them. The first 2 Waters Club shows we have videotape of.
oh, you gotta hook me up. I gotta see some of that.
I hate
Um,
watching those.
dude, but isn't that how it always is for musicians? Don't we always hate
Yeah.
watching our own shit, but other people enjoy it? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how it always is with art. It's so subjective now.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Now, okay, so go and then so you're playing, and I'm assuming, was it always packed then? Was it always like, what these documentaries and stuff kind of pertain it out to be with the music community, and just everybody's
Well,
going out to shows, everybody's, it's
yeah, it was good. Because we didn't, especially that first water show, it was just all of our friends and our moms, basically, and dads. Um, but there was just people there, in general, and the Waters Club holds, I think, can hold about or did hold about 1,000 people from what I remember them saying. But we also played with, the headliner was this, AC/DC tribute band called Bonds Bullies. And then they just became the Bullies and started doing original stuff later, but they had a pretty good following, so people were already starting to trickle in, and it was a drinking club. Well, one side was 18 or one side was all ages, and then the other side was 21 and over.
interesting.
So they had, like, a lot of people coming in, hanging out, just drinking, and it was like only 4 or $5 to get in. It wasn't ridiculous.
And
And
I interviewed the sound guy from Dancing Waters Club, about a year or 2 ago before he passed.
Daryl,
Yeah,
Dennis or
Dennis.
Dennis.
Dennis,
Yeah,
yeah. I interviewed him, and he was a super nice guy.
yeah.
But he was
He's an
telling
amp
me about
repair guy too.
yeah, he was, yeah, he's not no
Yeah.
longer with us anymore, sadly, but,
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, I found this out a few months ago, but yeah, super nice guy, but he was telling me some great stories about the Dancing Waters Club because, like I said, some of that stuff is very undocumented,
Mhm.
which it doesn't need to be. There needs to be some sort of thing on that and Fenders and the country club. There needs to be something that
Yeah,
documents all that stuff.
for
But
sure.
it was just really cool to hear stories about that club. There was like a fountain in the back, I guess that actually had, that's the dancing waters. That's where it came from. So
Yeah, yeah, it was a big waterfall. They kind of stopped using it after a while. I think the very first time we played there, it was still running, and then after a while, they just started shutting it off.
right.
But
So okay, so let's go to the. I mean, it's a couple years after, so it's like Mario, takes over the vocal duties. I'm assuming because obviously, the ex singer couldn't do it because of football or something weird,
exactly,
weird
and
like
that was
that.
a show we were playing with Nuclear Assault at
Right, right.
yeah, out in Riverside at the what was it? Forgot the name of the place now. Deanza, maybe? Might have
Oh,
been Deanza.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, we were playing, but the important part was it was like a huge thing for us. We were going to play with Nuclear Assault. It was like, fuck, this is rad. And he goes, yeah, I can't make it. I got a football game. And we're like, fuck your football game. He goes, yeah, my grandma, she just won't, she's not with it. And I go, all right, dude. Well, so we we had another guitar player friend that would hang out with us sometimes, and he learned the guitar parts, and then Mario learned the vocals, literally, like, in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
A-
was insane.
And I remember he brought like he had mentioned he's like, yeah, I brought like a gallon of iced tea
Oh, yeah.
and and he lost his voice literally like almost half like what the first song. I think it was
Mhm.
either first song or halfway through, and he's like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just thought that was
Yeah,
a
he
funny
never
fucking
sang
story.
before that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he just, but the great thing is he owned it. He went up there, and there was a ton of mistakes that night, I'm sure, but it went off well, and, we had some friends that are like, "No, it sounded fucking great," and that became the new band, actually, right after that,
Did he did
immediately.
he did he immediately take hold of the stage, or did it kind of take him a little bit to kind of be a front man rather than just a singer?
It took him a while, yeah. I mean, he did a good job considering, what he had to go through for this. It's like literally crammed for 2 days of I don't think he thought about once, well, maybe he did. What am I gonna do on stage? Because he was like, "Fuck, I gotta play these bass parts and I gotta sing it, and, and I've never done it before, and I'm gonna do it in front of a huge crowd, the biggest crowd we've ever played in front of, opening for Nuclear Assault." So we're just like, let's get it. Come on,
Absolutely.
and then he did it. He pulled it off. I mean, and Jeff, to his credit too, there was a guy, Jeff Tolfson, who was in the band for a little while that, um, he did a good job too. He learned all the parts, and I told him, I said, "If you forget anything, just grind an E. It's cool, dude. Don't worry about it."
Absolutely. He still does that, dude.
Yeah.
Now when it came to, the next phase in your specific career, I do wanna talk about, like, the Last Rites demo in '89. I wanna know kind of how it came about and also why there's no copies available when it
Yeah.
came to that and the si
Well,
and the debut demo, which was the Silent Scream demo. I wanna know why these copies actually maybe don't exist as much as it should.
there's a few demos that are missing. So there was the one where Rawl was on it, which we don't know where that is. The Last Rites was actually,
That's
um
the one that was reissued. My apologies. That was the one
yeah,
that came out on.
that one wasn't the last thing done with me, by the way. There was another demo that was way better after that. That Last Rites one was recorded in 1 day at Silver Cloud Studios, who the guy, do you know who Joe Floyd is? He was in a band called
Yeah,
Warrior.
Warrior. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, he owned a recording studio at the time called Silver Cloud, and we had no money, we were literally in high school, and, but we're like, "We wanna record 3 songs and have you mix it all in 1 day." And, knowing what I know now, that's a horrible thing to do, especially when you're not that good really yet. And you can hear on that demo, it's like the drums come in and it's like the first hit's way off from everything else with the bass and I mean, it's really bad. I didn't even realize at the time how bad it was. I just when I got re-released on the new record or the
Die
old
Bomb
record that
reissue?
was yeah, I listened to it, I was like, "Oh my god, why did they put this on here? This is horrible. This is fucking horrible." And but the demo that came out after that, which had the original version of Rise and Fall on it, there was another song called the fuck was on that one. I forget now.
Totally. What you wrote Rise and Fall, we should point that out too. You had some writing credit on that specific song that made it to, from the Darkest Depths record. But where I'm going with this, with these demos is, how much did tape trading kind of play into your guys' realm around this time?
It was starting, so it felt like the Europeans had a better grasp on it. Like it was more of a thing for them. You get people from smaller countries, especially, that they don't have as much access, and they really wanted access to like the LA. And by then, like the mid 80, like 87, 88, you had the thrash scene in San Francisco was huge. The New York bands and things like that. So there was trading going around the country and then around the world. You get people that wanted stuff. And then we ended up in a magazine. They reviewed one of our demos favorably. So we started getting some mail from around the world and people wanting demos and things. But yeah, it seemed to be a big culture, because there wasn't a big outlet. I mean, that was our YouTube. That was our, that was our place to get heard, was to trade with other people from around the world, really.
Absolutely. And I mean, just even, even, and I'm sure this probably played a part in you guys getting signed to it, even if it was only a smaller label. But it's like, you guys got signed still at a time
Yeah.
when, it's that's the only way you could get out there, was getting signed. It wasn't
Yeah.
like today where you can literally make a record in your bedroom and release it. It was like you had to be signed to a label, big or
Yeah.
small. So I'm sure it played some part in it, from my recollection on talking with the guys. But yeah, but why I just hopefully those demos can come out, because I would love to hear them. There's
Yeah,
only
I
that
have the
one.
mastered tapes of the last thing I did with them. I have the 16, it's a 1-inch 16 track. And at one point I had access to a 16 track 1-inch machine, probably in the 90s, and I transferred those tracks to ADAT. I don't know where those ADAT tapes are specifically. I have a pile of ADAT tapes from my old recording studio. So I got to go through them. I don't even have an ADAT machine anymore, but my buddy does. I got to go over there with my ADATs and go through them all. And I have that stuff somewhere, and I'm going to remix it and put that out.
Make sure to save me a copy, please.
Oh yeah,
Now,
yeah, for sure.
dude. So okay, so I'm gonna ask the big question.
Hmm.
Why weren't you a part of the From the Darkest Depths of the Imagination record?
Well, it actually, around 90, um, it kind of became this. So Jeff was replaced by Chris McCarthy, and Chris came to me originally, and he was like, "Hey, I'd like to jam with you guys," And I took it to Mario and Pat, and I said, "Hey, this guy wants to come by and jam." And Jeff was more into Aerosmith and the blues and shit. Like he didn't even like speed metal. Like he didn't like any of the bands we played with, really. It wasn't his thing. And Chris was a full metal guy. We knew him from another band called Guillotine. And I was like, "Hey, Chris wants to come jam with us. Let's check it out." So we jammed with him, and we were like, "That's really good." And so then it was us. Then it was us four. Then we started playing together. It was Chris and Mario and Pat. And then Chris was like, "Well, you're not playing my stuff right." And I'm like, I don't know. No two guitar players play anything exactly the same. You know what I mean? It's like that's what he wanted, and I'm like, well, it's not going to happen. And then he started talking with Mario and Pat, and then I heard him talking about, well, maybe we need to replace them. And I just confronted him. I said, well, yeah, okay, go ahead. And at the time, I started getting into like Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, a lot of electronic shit. I'm actually a huge fan of even Depeche Mode and The Cure and a lot of electronic music in general. And I was getting way into it at the time, and I was just like, "You know what? I think I'm done anyways. I'm not feeling this." And then Chris was like, "Hey, you're not even writing anything anymore." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not really into it," and I just didn't. And then that was it. I never was kicked out and I never really quit. It was kind of I think they were starting to look for somebody else and then I was just checked out. So it was kind of it's not even a mutual agreement. It stopped working. And then we had a few shows lined up and I said, "Oh, I'll play them, I'll just play these shows out and then that's it." And then they had a last minute show pop up, like literally that day. They're like, "Hey, they want us down at the Waters Club." I'm like, "I'm not driving." I go, "There's nothing in it for me anymore." You know what I mean? So I'm going to spend all this money in gas and all this shit. So they got Paul to do it, Mario's cousin. And then from then on out, that was just it. Then he finished the other shows as well, which Paul's an amazing guitar player. I mean, that was just like, and it was perfect. I was like, "That's great." And then I started getting way into, well, that's right when I started going to audio electronic school, if you will, and started nerding out about synthesizers. And I never really liked synthesizers until Ministry and Nine Inch Nails went, "Oh, you can add heavy guitars to this too and make it really fucking cool." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I love this. So then I got excited about it. But yeah, and that was it. And then I got more into kind of what was happening at the time, like the new stuff coming out. Then when White Zombie came out and it had kind of that electronic sound too. And even Jane's Addiction just blew me away at the time. I was just like, "Fuck, this is good stuff." Because it was melodic, but heavy still. And, I just loved all that stuff. Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. I saw Soundgarden when they opened up for Danzig and Corrosion of Conformity. They were on the Louder Than Love tour. So it was just I had changed, too. I was just not into it anymore. I didn't even go to like death metal type shows anymore. I would go see Sepultura or Slayer, but the newer bands coming out, I just wasn't into it. I wasn't a big Cannibal Corpse fan. Um, as it got heavier and heavier into the death metal scene, I actually started losing interest. I actually like it more now than I did in 1990. That's the funny part. Um,
Um,
so that was it.
okay, and give me from. I mean, I'm gonna have to say this from your like a fan perspective. When you first heard, your old band's album, did it do anything for you? Did you kind of wish you were on it, got the opportunity to, actually perform the songs that you wrote on it?
No, I didn't wish I was on it. It actually, the songwriting styles were a bit different than what I'm into, and it's not a bad thing. And a lot of bands do this. It's more, the songs were more about the riff than the actual song. So it's about writing a bunch of cool riffs and making a song out of it. Whereas like I like to think of it as a whole song. I don't care if the guitar riff seems impressive to anybody. I want the song to be impressive to people. You know what I mean? Like the individual pieces, I don't care how impressive the drummer is. I don't care how impressive the guitar player is. I want a great song first and foremost, which is what makes an Eddie Van Halen so great, because he can write these insane guitar solos and riffs, but it's still this amazing song. And to me, if there's not a great song structure, or if it's just droning on for 6, 7 minutes, just because you wanted to pile in 10 more riffs because that's a cool riff. That just wasn't my thing. And I loved punk rock in that way too. In that I love 2, 3 minute, 4 minute songs. If you got a 7, 8 minute song, it better say something. Like it's got to really go somewhere for me, and go in different directions maybe, and then bring you back around, that kind of thing. And there was some great stuff on there. And when I came back into the fold in like 2016, 17, I never played a lot of that stuff or even knew it. I didn't even learn some of it. I was out of the band when they wrote some of it. Some of it I knew, but so I just learned like the songs we were doing live. I had to learn those. I had never played them before, so I just learned them at that point.
And in between, when you had left, you had and when you returned, you had been kind of going to school for more audio and video kind of engineering rather
Mhm.
than playing in a band. So I kind of want to touch up on this if you don't mind.
Yeah.
where, what interested you about those specific avenues that maybe, playing in a band didn't?
Um, well, I I think the technology was just interesting to me that I can do it all on my own if I wanted to, and then take it to somebody and just go, "Hey, here's what I came up with." Um, you could do it by yourself without having to worry about being in a room with someone else, which at the time seemed like such a fantastic idea. And really, it's not the best thing. I still think being in a room with a bunch of people, I still do that. Like I'll come up with all the parts and drum machine it out, and then I'll bring it in as a song when I write something. Um, but I just enjoyed that. Maybe I was becoming a recluse, just kind of more of a. I think I got a little shyer even. I think when I was 15, 16, I was more ballsier. I hit around 19, 20, and I just got kind of more quiet and just wanted to like I loved being in the studio. It was like a nice feeling. And the more studios I was in, the more I fell in love with that, even more so than playing live.
And
Um,
there's probably a little bit more opportunities in that department as well, rather than just playing in a band, because I'm sure you kind of saw a little bit of the writing on the wall, right? When it came to like, hey, I can have something else to fall back on, so I'm
well,
gonna see where this goes.
there was that. There was a career aspect in it too. Yeah. That I could be a recording engineer. I could be a producer, and still just do music, and do it on my own terms, I guess too. Um, And like I said, the music I was into at the time, it fell real into that with the electronics and all that kind of stuff, so it just made sense, you know? That was really mostly and a career opportunity, and I didn't want any kind of other job. I didn't know what the hell else I would do. I didn't wanna dig ditches. I took auto body for, like, a year and a half out of high school and went, "This is horrible. Why am I doing this?" But I was also taking recording and radio classes at the same time too.
Oh, get out of town! So, like, did you want to be on the radio?
I
Is that what?
did, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was, I was just all of it. I wanted to explore all of it. I took an acting class too in college, and then, um, wasn't much into that. That wasn't really my thing, but no, I did broadcasting. I had a show on college radio for about a year. Um,
Interesting. What kind of stuff did you end up playing? Like the industrial stuff that you were into at the time, or was it?
Everything. I mean, I would play, like, old metal. I would play punk rock, hip hop. I really got into rap at that time too. Hated
That's what.
rap in high school. I don't know, it just didn't speak to me. It irritated the shit out of me actually. And then late high school, I'd say around 88, 89. So actually more, I'll say junior high. It was like Run DMC and all that and the Beastie Boys. I didn't dig it. It just wasn't my thing. And then around 11th grade, 12th grade, when I heard, Public Enemy, NWA, I was like, "This is the punk rock of rap, man. This is fucking heavy." This is like they have something to say. It's not like the early rap was just party dance songs. I'm not a party dance kind of person. Um, but when they were doing political shit and, like Fuck the Police was just heavy, man, when that came out. It doesn't seem like a lot now, but when that song came out, or like the Dope Man song, and it seemed so real, and I was in Long Beach, I was in North Long Beach, only a couple miles away from Compton. So I would see this shit, it would just seem real life to me, and it was just, it was heavy and it was kind of badass all at the same time. And then you had Public Enemy out of New York with the kind of Black Panther militant kind of thing. And, I just thought it was incredible, people speaking up, and it was like a new revolution again. It was like,
Absolutely.
Chuck D was like, I don't want to say he was like Martin Luther King rapping, but I mean, he had that message definitely, and the Malcolm X thing. And you think about it like growing up, and then you really start to think about how they grew up and the hatred and shit that they seen. And it was just incredible all through music, which is great, a different form of music. So just
Absolutely.
got into that too.
And I think that's what's severely lacking in that specific genre of music. But it's another topic for another day. Is the substance thing? There's
Now?
not a lot of now. There's not a lot
Oh,
of
now it's horrible.
yeah.
There's
I
not
can't.
many. There's a few, but it's
I think, not to get off on a tangent, I think Eminem is one of the last like true legends in music. Period. Um,
Mhm,
because he has a lot, a lot of substance. When that man crosses over,
mhm.
I'm assuming I will be devastated, but I'm assuming a lot of people will be devastated, because of that man's substance and what he said in his music. Not a
Yeah,
lot of people have that anymore. It's all like kind of a little bit more money driven,
mhm.
less risks, as I'll call it. It's more about the dollar sign rather than having a message.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, there's a few people I kinda like some of the Anderson .Paak stuff. I thought some of his stuff's good. It's not great, but then, I found out Dr. Dre produced it, and anything Dre produces, it's just usually pretty goddamn good anyways, It's just like that guy he's one of my favorite producers in any out of all genres of music because he just first of all, it just sounds good. Like all of his hip hop stuff, that the low end, how he gets it to sit in every goddamn context. Like it can be on headphones, it could be in my car, but the low end is just booming, but perfect. It's not overwhelming, but it doesn't step on everything else. It's just like, man, that guy, he really is a great producer. I-
Dude,
it's
and I remember finding out about Dr. Dre from Eminem, with Encore. That was like the shit. I was in
oh
like
yeah.
elementary school and that record was like everywhere on MTV, when they played music videos.
Mhm,
But yeah, dude, like I just remember like seeing who Dr. Dre was. Didn't know who he was. I guess he had found Eminem
mhm.
from this killer documentary that I watched. But yeah, it was just like you said, that played a huge kind of part with the mixing and again, it's like it's severely lacking in today's music. With when it comes to especially the rap community, for me personally, I'm only
Yeah.
speaking for me. But I can't get into the mumble rap. I can't get into almost anything in that genre. It doesn't
No,
speak.
it's just all seems so throwaway anyways. They just throw a bunch of rappers all on one track together, and it's like, "Oh, featuring, featuring, featuring." I just want one killer record, like, you go in the studio and I felt like that's what they did with Anderson .Paak, even though there was some features on there as well, but, that was just really that reminded me a little bit of the old days, not 100%. I'd like to hear a little bit more of that, you know? The only other rap group I really like, right now is Run the Jewels. I really dig
Okay,
what they're doing.
I'll have to check them out or whatever. But
Yeah, the new record's great. They got Zach from, Rage Against the Machine on one track. Um, there's some great stuff on there. That is old school heavy, and it hits hard, and the lyrical content, a lot of it's really good too. Of course, if Zach's doing a song, it's political probably,
probably,
so
and it's
yeah.
probably a little bit more leaning on one side than the other. So yeah, I get
Yeah.
I get it. So, but there's I think there will be a resurgence when it comes to having artists with substance. I'm sure there will come a point where not all of us are drones and playing to the machine that just wants our money. I'm sure we'll want some substance, hopefully very soon. Dude,
Yeah.
so talk to me a little bit about rejoining Silent Scream and kind of how that came about for you when you got the phone call,
Mhm.
what year it was. Talk to me about that whole process.
Oh, it was, I believe, 2016, and the album hadn't been re-released yet, but Mario and Pat knew about it, and, they him the 3 of them got together, Paul, Mario, and Pat, and they jammed a little bit, and then I guess they said, "Let's call Chris and see if he's interested." Chris Lawson, not McCarthy, but yeah, then Mario called me, and, Pat and I, over the years, we would talk, but not a lot. I talked to Mario a lot more than anybody. Um, Mario's like the nicest out of all of us, by the way. He's seriously, he's the most angry on stage looking and seems like he would be, hard to deal with, but just because you hear his voice, you go, "Ooh, that guy looks scary." I don't know. But he's probably one of the sweetest people, and and to this day, one of my best friends. I mean, hands down, just one of the nicest guys ever that I would do anything in the world for. But so Mario called me and he goes, "Hey, so they're re-releasing From the Darkest Depths of the Imagination, and an old demo's on it. We got some old pictures put in there too, and you're a little bit more involved on this too." And I was like, "Oh, cool, great, man, congrats, you guys." And he goes, "Well, would you be interested in playing a couple shows with us?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds fun." And it literally started out, we were going to do a couple shows, and then that was it. And we all got fired up, and the next thing you know, we were writing new songs, and
Well, did you particularly not put down the guitar or after all the time had passed, or did you pick it up right when you got the phone call?
oh no, I've been playing all this time. I never stopped playing. I was in different bands, all through the 90s. I was in bands. Um, I had a few different incarnations. In fact, I had a band with Phil, the singer of Evil Dead, in the early 90s too. Speaking of demos that I can't find that people would probably want to hear, more for Phil than anything, but especially after the Evil Dead re-release now, or not re-release, but new record.
Right.
But yeah, we had a band in the early 90s called Grimace. And
Grimace, like the upside down milkshake from McDonald's?
well, yeah, it kind of, and then just a grimace, like, that.
Oh, okay. I only know from the McDonald's character, so
Yeah,
that's
well,
cool.
there's the term grimacing, like when it's like a smile, but like you're in pain. Like, it was very early 90s, very
Totally.
grunge 90s.
Dude, I didn't even know that was an upside down milkshake, by the way.
Grimace?
Yeah, didn't even know that for like the longest time.
I didn't know till right now.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, because
the big
yeah,
purple monster?
it's an upside down milkshake. That's what it's supposed to be. And I was like,
Oh, I
oh,
didn't know that. Oh,
yeah,
shit. Wow.
right. So you
News
learn
for
something
me.
new. There you go, dude. This is what happens when you come on the show and listen to it. So you
Yeah.
learn new
No,
shit.
but I was playing all through that in the 90s, and I got real into blues too. I love playing like, a lot of bluesy kind of
Interesting.
stuff.
That's
Yeah.
that's really cool. So you kept yourself busy. Your playing ability was like top notch, probably around that time.
No, no, no.
No, okay, okay. Yeah, and then when learning the songs again for it though, they mentioned they wanted to do a couple shows, promote
Mhm.
the new re-release and stuff.
Mhm.
How long what was it when after the phone call happened when you kind of started to reconnect with them and start jamming again?
Not too far. It started off, Mario came over and was just working on the songs with me. He showed me some parts. Um, Stuff that fast. It's I like to see it, like trying to hear it, and it just takes too long. If someone can show you, I'm like, and I told him, I said, "I'm not going to sit here and learn these by myself. You're going to show them to me, you or Paul. I don't have time. We're adults now, I have bills and shit." So, um, yeah, Mario came over, we just hung out, and which is just a blast. Me, Mario, Paul, Pat. So we start hanging out, and it's just wonderful. So we're back there, we're laughing, and he just showed me the songs, and then I videotaped them, and then just learned them, and that was it. It wasn't that hard. It was just me sitting down and doing it. And I think I only learned like 4 songs off that record. I still don't know 2 or 3 of them at all. 'Cause we
I
never
know,
played them live, so I never learned
right,
them.
right, and
But
so
Rise
I
and Fall I knew, but, um and I had to relearn it, but, it was that one wasn't hard to relearn. And then we did what? Theater of the Depraved.
Matrix? Did you do Matrix of
No,
Madness?
we didn't do Matrix. I don't know that
Open
one still.
Open Season?
Nope.
Prey Upon the
Um,
Weak?
nope. And
Okay.
then Self-Abuse,
Title
shit.
track from The Darkest Depths?
Yeah, The Darkest Depths, we did that one, Theater of the Depraved, and then Rise and Fall. We did
Okay,
those 4. And that's
okay.
the only 4 we still play live.
I'm hoping to change that one day.
And
I'm
then,
hoping.
So anyways, yeah, we do those 4, and then we wrote 3 new ones. They started a song that when the 3 of them got together, and then I went, "Oh, you guys wrote a new song? Rad, let me hear it," and I got all excited. I'm like, "Let's record it." And then by the time we were going to record that, I wrote 2 new ones, which was Slaves and, My Amendment. And I pretty much wrote them like all the way through with drum machine, the whole bit. And then Pat changed it a little bit, what he wanted. And then I wrote all the lyrics, which I normally didn't do everything back in the day like that. I would do a guitar riff. I didn't write a lot of lyrics for Silent Scream originally. Mario did most of it, or Raw. And I think I would add in things here and there, but I never sat down and wrote a whole song. I would
Now,
write a whole music for a song, but that was it.
gotcha. Now, walk me through the first show back. I remember this was kind of like a big deal. I remember my buddy Jason Tyler is like, "I'm booking Silent Scream. I want you guys to play." We couldn't obviously play with you at that specific moment. We were going through our own issues there, but I remember this being a big deal. I mean, you guys played. What was the venue out on Anaheim? The
Black
fucking
light or something
where
like that.
you can't ever find parking. That place. You
Yeah,
know.
I think is it called Black Light or what?
Yes.
I
I can't
forget now.
remember.
That was the first
Yeah.
time I was ever there. That was the
Blacklight
first time I
Lounge
knew
or something. I
something
can't
like
remember.
that. Yeah, in Long Beach there. Yeah, it was great, and it was more great because just seeing old friends, and playing and hanging out with old friends. That to me first and foremost. And I told Mario this. I said when he asked me if I go, just for anything, just to give us an excuse to hang out together more than anything, just because as we get older, life just gets busy, and it's like you can't always. But when you have a show, you're like, well, I have a show, I gotta go, right? There's no excuses. I gotta
Yeah,
do it.
it's a
So
commitment.
it became one of those, which was nice.
Awesome. And after this, right at the gate, you start writing music. Nothing's
hmm
recorded.
hmm
Like literally, nothing has been recorded since then.
Well,
Um,
we recorded all 3 of those songs.
and released them.
No,
Okay, that's my point. That's where I'm going with this.
it
It,
wasn't released. They're all recorded though.
I know, but they haven't been released yet, dude. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, when can we expect something from the Silent Scream camp with
Well,
you playing on it, in the new generation that is Silent Scream.
sir, the so the 3 songs are done, the 3 I just spoke of, and we were like, "Well, let's just do an EP. Let's make this simple." And that was the plan originally anyways. We weren't gonna try to do a full album. It got tossed around, but, like, we're like, "Fuck, it's taking so long just to do these 3." And this was, like, in 2018 when we were having this discussion. We were going, "Alright, it's already taken us this long to get these 3 done." And that was a long time then because I started writing my 2, and they had already written their one. That was 2016. So, um, God, now I'm really thinking about how fucking long it's been, and I'm going, "God damn, what have we been doing?"
That's what I'm
So,
asking.
I know. I'm trying to give you a good answer, and I don't think I really have a good answer outside of just pure fucking laziness and, life is a motherfucker. Well, as you know, Pat also lives in Colorado. Um, I live in Ventura County, up in Oxnard, Ventura area, and Mario's all the way out in Riverside, and Paul's kind of in the middle of me and Mario in Wilmington. But so it makes for a hard kind of travel too. But however, so last Sunday, I went to Paul's house and we recorded his guitars for the 4th song, which would be the final song for the EP. Mario was supposed to come out and do the vocals that day, but he had the COVID vaccine the day before, and it knocked him out. And so I was at Eldon practice in the morning, and then I was heading to Paul's with my portable recording rig, and I get a message saying, "Oh, Mario's not going to be able to make it." I'm like, "Fuck, man." But then I read he was knocked out from the COVID vaccine thing, and I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't had mine yet, so I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. And then And I'm like, it probably sucks. So fuck. And then but Paul and I, of course, were laughing, you know, um, at him and like, okay, make sure Mario's okay, and fucking with him. And then I got the shot a week later and it knocked me out like a motherfucker. But, so anyways, we recorded Paul's guitar parts. We just need to get Mario's vocals on it. We got the drums, bass, guitars. I haven't recorded my guitar part on it. Because I'm going to kind of play some things around the vocal too, I think.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for the vocal to get in there. So it's really, I just got to get back together with Mario and then mix it. And then the EP will be done.
Well, when it's done, you better get your ass back on here and promote it so we can play some new songs because I'm craving it.
For sure. Yeah, it'll be fun. You heard 3 of the songs, but
yeah, every day for fucking like 15 days straight almost.
Yeah.
Almost, right? Wasn't it like 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks. Yeah.
I can't
10
even
days,
remember.
10 dates.
Oh, I can't even remember, dude. I've done a lot of tours, so I can't.
Yeah.
It's a little hard for me to remember everything. But, dude, so that let's talk the first tour, if you don't mind. Getting the offer, for your side, how did that come about?
Getting
the tour offer, because I don't remember how it came about.
I don't either. Mario or Paul, Pat just contacted me and said, "Hey, Jason was setting up some kind of tour with Madras and us." And that's all I heard. And I went, "Well, man, I don't know if I can do it." I had just started working at Seymour Duncan at the time. And I hadn't been there a year even. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if I can do it." And then so they were going to do it without me. Either way, they were just going to get someone else to fill in. I was still going to be in the band. I wasn't out of the band.
Right.
And they didn't say, "Well, if you can't do it, you're out of the band." They just said, "Okay, well, fuck, if you can make it happen, make it happen." So I ended up talking to Seymour Duncan and they were cool with it since it was a tour thing. And that's what we were promoting, that little power
that
stage
was
thing.
awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That thing is fucking rad, dude. But like, and I specifically remember playing. That's right, it's coming back because I specifically remember playing with you now at the spring thrash bash.
Oh yeah,
at Malone's.
yeah.
Wasn't that it? Where it was us and you guys and Insecticide and bands of that caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's coming back to me. And
That
that's
was the
how
first time we played with you guys.
That's right. And you guys ended up staying for us, which we greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how okay, now it's coming back. And we wanted to tour with you guys.
Mhm.
We thought it would be cool to, it's like your first ever tour. It's kind of special, you never forget that stuff. So
Yeah, we didn't that's the thing. Back in the day, outside of maybe going to, maybe out of town for a day or two. And then those guys did more so even after I left the band. They did some Vegas stuff and I think they went to Tijuana, stuff like that. But it was never any 2-week kind of tour or anything like that. And at the time it was a little harder too. There was no internet, it was a little, unless you had a seasoned promoter on your side, you were fucked. It was no, and normally a record label, even, a lot of times you had to have a record label backing you even to even get out there. And we were, at that time, we had no money, whatsoever. At least now, if like we didn't make money or we needed gas money, we all had jobs, so we could just kick in, we weren't worried. So,
totally.
But yeah, and it was just great. It was great to do. I'm glad we got to do it for sure.
I am too, man. I'm honored. I'm still honored that we got to do that together,
Yeah, it was fun.
And then obviously, I was stoked to share the stage with you guys on a couple on one song for a couple nights. We did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Other
especially in
Steps.
Orange County, that was a good one.
That was a good one. That was really fun.
What's that club called? Shit.
The Slide Bar.
Slide Bar. Yeah.
Dude, and it was like, it was kind of packed. I was like stoked, dude.
It was good. Yeah, that was a great show. I think that was my favorite show almost out of, the whole tour.
hanging
Outside
out
of
at Pat's house. That was cool. I loved hanging
Oh,
out
yeah,
at
yeah.
Pat's house because like we were in the dungeon, as I called it, but it was rad. It was
Yeah. Well, that's a nice tour stop, especially since there was 2 shows in Colorado and then Pat happens to live in Colorado, so we had a few days of luxury.
I know. I remember changing my strings in his computer room. There's like
Yeah,
books
yeah,
everywhere and shit. That was
yeah,
that was fun times, man. So lastly, I want to thank you for coming on and hanging with me. I want to do this again sometime and help
yeah.
promote the new EP, which I'm hoping will be a record since it's like taking you the guys this long to just do an EP. But at least we'll get something out of it, right?
Yeah.
But walk me through the whole Art of Self Deception EP from Eldon, and you're an EP man. I don't know what it is about you.
You know
No
what?
albums.
It just seems like a easier goal to get to at this age. And I don't wanna say that we're too old or anything like that to do it. It's more about responsibilities and, most of the guys I actually have the least amount of responsibilities out of all of them. I have no kids. I live with my girlfriend. We're engaged, but we're not even married, and we have a dog. So it's easy for me. Paul has 2 kids and a wife. Pat has 2 kids and a wife. Mario doesn't have kids, but he's got a wife. And so actually, Mario and me have about the same responsibility. He has a wife and a dog. But it's just working and paying bills now. And it's like, keeping up with your lifestyle. You start doing albums and going on tour, and it doesn't pay. We all know that it's not a huge money maker. So that's what it's more of that, because I've said it many times. I miss those days of no responsibility whatsoever and just being able to do this. And the minute you add in, as great as a girlfriend and a wife is, you add that into the picture, you pretty much cut your production time in half of how much time you're going to be able to spend on that stuff. No
Absolutely.
matter, on both sides, probably for women musicians just as much as men. It's like the other person's like, well, what are you doing? They don't always get it. No matter how much they get it, they don't always get it. And then they hear the final thing, like, my girl loved the Eldon record. She's not a big Silent Scream fan, though.
That's okay.
Well, she doesn't like heavy death metal type stuff.
That's
It's just
cool.
not her
Well,
thing, right?
hey,
So,
that's totally cool, man. It's not ain't gonna
yeah,
stop me from playing it. So.
yeah. No, I know. Me neither. But the Eldon thing, when I was more doing studio recording, here's the quick story, I guess, on that is in the early 2000s, I owned a studio in Orange County. It was right across the way from what Bomb Shelter Rehearsal is. And that's how I've known Brett from Bomb Shelter all those years, because I owned a recording studio that was right across the way from them. And so this band comes in, this punk rock band, and they went to the main studio and they're like, oh, we're this punk rock band from Orange County. And they're like, send them to Chris. And so I started recording them. They were called Payaso.
Mm,
And it was Danny, who's
Payaso.
this, yeah,
That's
Payaso,
familiar
which
to
means
me.
clown in Spanish. And so Danny came in and he was just like fucking on fire. That guy, he's just full of energy. And when you see him live, you'll see it. It's crazy. It's just like I've never seen someone with so much fucking rock energy in my life. And it's good. It's in a good way. Like you see him on stage and you're just like, fuck, that was a show. And so I recorded some stuff with them, and then they came back for another CD, and then they added Jesse Watt as their drummer, who's now the bass player of Eldon. So I've known these guys, some of them, for like 20 years. And then around Danny went away at that point for a little bit, and then I saw them play live in 2003 or 4 with their newest lineup, which was the best lineup they've ever had, in my opinion. And I was just fucking blown away at the live show. I was like, this is amazing. And I saw Danny, he goes, hey man, what's up? And I go, you guys need to come in and record. Let's do a full record though. Let's do a real record. Your songs are great. Your fucking energy is amazing. And he goes, well, we don't have any money. I said, I don't care. Just let's do it. I said, I'll produce it. I'll engineer it. I'll mix it. So we did a record called Sexfixia, and it did pretty well in the Orange County kind of punk rock underground world. I have that CD still somewhere if you want one of those ever. But
Absolutely. Send it on over.
and I was just recording them and engineering, and then he goes, "Hey, you're a guitar player, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You want to play a guitar solo on this?" And I said, "Sure." So I did one guitar solo, and then I ended up kind of playing some other parts, and so I played on the record too. By the end of the record, I was in the band. I was just a member of the band, and then we would play a little bit, and it was good. And then Danny would go away. We'd play a little more. Danny would go away, and then around 2010, he got out again, and or 9, 10, somewhere around there. And that's when he had these songs, these new songs that didn't quite seem like Payaso songs anymore. They were a little more thought out, a little more, they're still punk rock. They're still kind of got edge to them, but they had a little more of a melodic value to them. And the songwriting I thought was just better personally. And so I was working at a place called Apogee that makes audio recording gear, and they have a great studio. And I go, "Why don't you guys come down? Danny came down, and he goes, well, I said, "Well, who do you got to play drums on?" He goes, "We don't have a drummer right now." Jesse was kind of missing in action at that time too, who played drums. He was having his own issues at the time. And then Danny goes, "Well, I'll play drums on it." I'm like, "Oh no, this is gonna be a fucking nightmare." He came in and they had a set in the studio. We set it up. He sat there and hummed the songs to himself and played the drums all the way through. And then he got out a guitar and played the guitar to the drums perfectly, then played bass and then sang on it. And I was just like, "You got to be fucking kidding me." And his drums were not perfect, but I've
Did they
recorded way worse drummers who play every day.
did they fit? Did they fit the music? That's the whole
Yeah.
point to it. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Right?
It was perfect. And he had literally just got out of prison. He hadn't played drums in 3 years or more, hadn't even played guitar. Well, no, he had an acoustic in prison somehow, he was telling me. That's when he wrote the songs. And then, so yeah, he had Here Today, Gone to Chino, and then 2 other songs that we didn't end up using. And then, after that, he kept sending me, like, MIDI drum files. He got a little computer at home, and he started creating little MIDI drum files. He'd never done it before in his life. He just figured out how to do it. And then he would come over he would send me the MIDI drum files, and I'd make them sound more like real drums. And then
Right.
he would record the guitar part, show me how it goes, and then I would record it my way, and then do solos and kind of produce it all. And then we did Stomp, we did Godless back then. We started Godless, we didn't have it quite as finished. Stomp, we pretty much had finished. Goodbye, we had finished. Chino, we had finished, and then Godless was halfway. And then he went away again. Yeah.
So what
And
is
then
the
he was
current?
just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until 2 years ago.
Okay, so what is the current state is a little bit more stable now?
Well, so everybody in the band is working the program, as they call it. They all kind of had their issues. I don't really know Ron and Aaron to that degree, how bad they were, or they may not have been bad at all. They just maybe had some things here and there. But I know Jesse and Danny had some serious issues with alcohol and drugs. So they would just disappear. It was to that level where you just wouldn't see them for a couple years, you know?
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so that stopped. Jesse actually now is a counselor at one of the rehabs, and he's been clean for 6 or 7 years now.
That's good.
Danny hit 2 years today, I think it was, they said. So yeah, everything's cool. Everything's back on track, and we got the EP done at least. So
Absolutely, and
yeah.
I highly recommend people go check it out. But lastly, where can people check out anything Silent Scream, anything Eldon? Yeah, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, man. It means a lot. So go for it.
Thank
Take us
you.
out with the links, dude.
Yeah, well, Silent Scream, you could still order Darkest Depths of the Imagination. Dive Bomb re-released it. You could still get that. I don't believe it ever made it on iTunes. They were going to put it up. I don't think it ever happened. As far as the Eldon stuff, it's only streaming at this point. It's on Spotify, Apple. You can either stream it or buy it on Apple. You can buy it on Amazon. It's on Bandcamp now.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, after our last discussion, Danny called me, goes, well, apparently we need to get on Bandcamp. I started laughing. I go, yeah, let's do it. So he's on that. We got it on there, and it's on SoundCloud too, which is just free to listen to for anybody, just because, like, fuck it, just go listen to it. You know, it's not about how much money we're going to make. It's just about, we want to get it out there. We worked pretty hard on it, and it's a long process, and it's a great story, really. I think there's a documentary in the works on Danny at one point.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking. You're gonna have to keep us posted with that. But dude, Chris, I want to thank you so much again for coming on the show and hanging. It means so much to me, and I'm sure everybody else. So,
Yeah, it
another
means a lot to
episode-
me.
Absolutely, my friend.
Thank
Well,
you.
another episode of Poppitt's Corner. I'm out of here, guys.